Hello and welcome to Tank and AFV News. My name's Tom and today we are looking at a book. This one is from the Casemate Illustrated Special series. This is German Tank Destroyers by Pierre Tiquet. I'm not even going to try. It's French. Tiquet. Tiquet? I'm going to go with Tiquet because I think the T is usually silent at the end of a French word, right? So anyhow, this one is the second book that I've had a chance to look at in this series. The first one being, people remember the review we did a few months ago on the Casemate Illustrated Special Sherman book, also by a French author, although different author. This one's a little larger. So, and in this book I really liked. I gave that one a pretty positive review. I was very happy to add that to my collection of books on the Sherman. It had, particularly when it came to French markings, the free French markings for Sherman tanks had stuff that wasn't in any other book that I owned. So I was also equally interested then in looking at this book, and I would say that this one is quite a bit different. Whereas the Sherman book is more of a technical history, rather detailed, this book is really more a collection of interviews and excerpts from actual German tank destroyer crew members. It's not as heavy on the technical descriptions and whatnot. So anyhow, let's instead of just talking about it, let's give it a look. So, as you can see, hardcover book. The paper quality, the binding quality, all that stuff seems fine. It's just pretty much how all the Casemate books that I've looked at are. There's never really been a problem with quality. Here we have the contents. So it sort of starts and goes through the different types of Panzerjäger. Oddly enough, it sort of ends with the Panzerjäger 4. It does not cover Jag Panther or Jag Tiger, and I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. But just to warn people, those vehicles are not in here. Here it starts off with a little overview information on this Panzerjäger in general, and then it starts off here with the Panzerjäger 1, the Martyr 1, and the Martyr 3. Or the Martyr II, I should say, and Martyr III. The Martyr I was, I believe, one of those conversions of, was it the French Lorraine tractor? And I don't know if that one really gets much coverage in this book. What is interesting is that he repeatedly refers to the Panzerjäger 1, which is the Czech 47mm gun on top of a Panzer I chassis, as the Enti. I'm not sure if that's the proper German pronunciation, but it's the word for duck. I've never heard it referred to as the duck before. I've heard of Panzerjäger 4s referred to as Guderian's duck, but just the duck. I mean, and I'm assuming, since it seems like a lot of this guy's research has been in interviewing former German veterans, that there must have been some that referred to it that way. I don't think he just makes something up. At least I hope not. But certainly I don't think that was any sort of official nickname or one that I've seen in other books. So take that for what it is. Panzerjäger 1 was called the Duck, and you can see it's a pretty small, it's kind of an amazingly small vehicle compared to the stuff that would come later. And like I said, the book, quite a few photos, so if you're looking for reference photos, this isn't going to be a bad place. And if you're looking, like I said, for examples of the kind of actions they're involved with, and here we've already moved on to the Martyr II. And here it starts to have a description, but like I said, the descriptions are not super in-depth technical descriptions. Here's some color drawings, so it gives you an idea if you for model makers, if you're looking for color schemes and marking ideas, that will give you something to work with. And as you can see, more photos, and anytime you see this text that's kind of indented, that's the interviews with the other soldiers. So let's flip a little. I'm not going to go page by page, because if I went through every page of the book, then you'd know. If you want to see every page, you have to go buy the book yourself. And we get into the Martyr III. And of course, the interesting thing with the Martyr series is that there's like multiple, so you can say Martyr II, and it's like, well, there's a couple of really quite distinct different vehicles that are called that. They don't even all have the same gun because, as he points out, and the author also this one keeps referring to the Soviet 76.2 millimeter or 3-inch gun as the Rachbaum or Rachbaum, I don't know, something like that, which is supposedly what the German soldiers called it because of the noise that it made. Interestingly, he also includes the Dicker Max and the Stur Emo, which were both essentially just prototypes from earlier in the war that were put out in the field for use. And he does state these were technically not intended as anti-tank vehicles originally. I think they were intended primarily for use against fortifications. But certainly once they were out there in the east, they were used as anti-tank vehicles. Although, like in the case of like the Stur Emo, there were only 2 of them. And Dicker Max was also in very, very limited numbers. And then here we're moving on to Elephant and the Nashorn. There's, of course, the one from Aberdeen, sitting out there looking rather worse for wear. Fortunately, these Aberdeen vehicles, a lot of them are in the process of getting moved to Fort Benning, where they're at least getting external restoration. So, and then finally the Hetzer, or Jagdpanzer 38T, if you want to be more precise, because of course there's quite a debate over how valid the nickname Hetzer was for this particular vehicle, and it's hard to say that there's a really definitive answer on that issue, but it's probably best to say Jagdpanzer 38 to be on the safe side. And here we have the Elephant, which of course was that rather oddball vehicle since it was built on the Porsche Tiger chassis, which Porsche was they say don't count your chickens before they hatch. They're producing vehicles before they've won the contract, and then repurposing them or rebuilding them as tank destroyers. The Ferdinand's sort of an interesting one because it always gets used as an example of a vehicle that was sort of a waste of resources or unsuccessful, but and they did have serious problems. They were maintenance nightmares, but the amount of armor this thing has and the size of the gun, in the right circumstance, they were extremely effective, dangerous weapons. Were they the most efficient or practical weapon? No, but they certainly, once they existed, there was no reason really not to use it. Assuming you have the fuel and the maintenance resources to keep them running, which of course they didn't always. Of course, sending them to Italy was probably not the best idea considering the terrain there. And then finally we have the Jagdpanzer 7 or 7 Jagdpanzer 4/70 is the long-barreled version. So there was the version of the shorter 75 millimeter gun is found on Stoke 3s and whatnot, and then there's the longer gun, which is basically similar to what's on the German Panther. And like I said, that sort of finishes the book up. There's nothing on Jag Panther or Jag Tiger. Does have a further reading section here and index, and that's about it. So 192 pages. Let's see what it says for price. $39.95 in the US or £35 in the UK. Casemate Publishers. Of course, you can order it through. I always put a link to the Casemate website on my video descriptions. Like I said, if you're interested in some decent photographs and stories of from Jagdpanzer crews, this book will be useful. If you're looking for really detailed technical information, probably not so much. So, in that regard, I was slightly disappointed. Not that I don't already have plenty of other books that have the technical information, but it's always fun to see more of it. And the other thing I'm always a little leery about when it's veteran stories, particularly if they're not corroborated with other evidence out of archives, so after action reports and whatnot. You can a crew can say that, yeah, in this one action we destroyed 5 Russian tanks one day. Is that true? We don't know. You'd have to. It's interesting over on the Tank Archive site. Peter Samsonov has people looking in some of those Soviet archives And it's always interesting when he puts the Soviet archival after action reports and casualty figures, you know, what they themselves were saying that had been inflicted upon them, and what the Germans in the same actions were saying they had inflicted upon the enemy. There's usually quite the discrepancy, and that's probably true for all armies. Everybody overstates the casualties that they've inflicted. So anyhow, so I always take those, you know, veteran stories with a grain of salt, because that's just the way that human beings are. So thanks to Casemate for giving me a chance to give this one a look. It's a very handsome book, and we will catch you on the next one.